Hello, my name is Debbie Boone, and I want to welcome you to my podcast, The Bend, where we explore how successful people navigated the path and emerged in a better place when life threw them an unexpected twist. It's inspired by one of my favorite sayings: the bend in the road is not the end of the road unless you fail to make the curve. These conversations will hopefully help you and inspire you to embrace your personal bend and to flourish. I hope you enjoy it, and if you need help with your own personal navigation and you're in veterinary medicine, please feel free to reach out to me at Debbie Boone 2 Manage Vets Consulting. Enjoy the bend and be inspired by our wonderful guest. Welcome. Well, good morning, everyone, and welcome to today's episode of The Bend. Now, you might recognize my guest because she's been with me before, but she is my good friend, Rebecca Rose. And Rebecca has got some very exciting news to talk about, so I invited her to come on because even with all of her credentialing, she is a certified career coach. She is a certified peaceful euthanasia professional. Up until recently, she was working with Lap of Love, going all over the country talking to people about euthanasias and doing the fun work of a trade show booth, which is not fun for anybody.
It's exhausting. People don't realize how
It is.
exhausting that
Everybody
can
thinks
be.
it's so much fun, but it is so exhausting to do that. But she is, it's kind of like me. We've been doing this a minute, right? 37 years for you, 38 for me. And now
Mhm.
she has been appointed to the Colorado State Board of Veterinary Medicine as one of the first RVT members. That's very exciting. I could just go on and on and on because Rebecca has just done a little bit of everything, but she's always had this passion project in the back pocket, kind of, and it was called Veterinary Teams Living Well. And she built this closed Facebook group in 2017, and it's grown and grown and grown. And now it has all these very active members. And so she wants to bring this to the forefront. So we're going to talk today about veterinary teams living well and Rebecca and how she's sees this going forward in the future, helping veterinary teams really thrive. So welcome back, Rebecca. Glad to have you, girl.
Thank thank you for the invitation once again. It's always delightful to spend time with you and just see where our conversations go. Because anybody that's watched us before, you never know where they're going to go.
Go anywhere. That's right. That's right. So I'm really curious as to this brave step that you took because having a job is safe and moving out into the great unknown is not. So let's talk a
Mhm.
little bit about it before we even get started about Vet Teams Living Well, about how
Yeah.
you took this brave leap to say, you know what, I'm just going to go for it. I'm just going to do it.
Well, and it's not the first time in my career I've done that. And it's not the first time that I've moved into something and not really known much about it. As an example, in 2000, so 24 years ago, I became the first paid administrator to the Technician Association in Colorado. And I was also working for the Colorado Veterinary Medical Association. So, again, a much younger version of me, but I knew that something needed to be done. There was an application for it, and I had no skills whatsoever in association management. No skills whatsoever. And I applied and got it, right? So that I think that's a part of just being that courageous person that sees something needs to be done. I know for a lot of women, when they choose career shifts, they want to know that they can, you know, tick off on all of the skills. And I'm not that kind of person at all. I'm like, I'm ambitious, I'm creative, I'm resourceful, I am,
Basically, you'll figure it out. I think that
I,
about a lot of people, especially those of us who have managed veterinary hospitals and done it well, is that we're problem solvers. We figure it out.
mhm,
We take
mhm,
skills that we learned in a completely different atmosphere or job, and we
mhm,
pull them into play where we are now. And sometimes I think that's good because if you think about, I brought hospitality skills into the medical office because that's the only
yeah.
way I knew to treat customers. And it worked out very well because I trained my whole team
Mhm.
for that and then ended up writing a book. But I love what you said about just taking the leap because when Care Credit and Brenda Andreessen said, "Can you write a book and have it done by AVMA?" I went, "Sure," having no idea how long it was going to really take to do that. But you know what? We got it done. We got it done, and it
Yeah,
happened. So,
yeah.
good for you. And that is encouraging, I think, to people in the audience who look at an opportunity and go, as you said, I'm not completely qualified for that. And that's a woman thing. You hate to say it, but
Mhm,
when you even look at
mhm.
data points, men will go, well, I can do two of the five things they ask. I'll go for it. And women will go, well, I go
Yeah,
for the other three things, and then I'll go ask for that job. So learn it on
yeah.
the fly. Learn it on the it works. If you're good at it,
It
it
works.
work out. That's right.
Well, and knowing too in the past that I've survived, right? Keeping things in perspective. Knowing in the past I've put myself out there for a multitude of things that you're just going to make it happen. Just going to either apply or do it or create it or something. And it's worked.
Mhm.
So when you have that behind you and you have that confidence behind you, I explain to folks, I've been told no a lot in my life. That doesn't mean I don't try again.
Still standing, right? Yeah.
Still standing, still
Yeah.
standing. So that's basically too what, so Veterinary Teams Living Well was created in 2017. So that's, geez, that's some years ago. And it was brewing and it really still remains to be that passion project of mine. But this fall is when I really felt time was now, that there's a growing understanding of the real need for cultures that are healthy, team environments that are healthy, teams that are healthy, and not just in few aspects of their personal life and personal career, but in all aspects of that. So I met a woman at the Association of Veterinary Technician Educators. She's not an educator within the technician program. She was just there with a fellow cohort friend. And I found out that she helped people create nonprofits. And it was palpable. I mean, when I first started talking to her and she was telling me about what she does, and I had just explained to someone probably 24 hours earlier that I was really wanting to make this a nonprofit, it was like, you know,
Serendipity. That's right.
it was very serendipitous, and so we did. We just jumped into it and started within 3 months period of time. I do have a website. I'm not really totally ready to launch it. It's still just brewing in the background. I'm starting to build my board. I did apply for all of the nonprofit IRS tax status and all of that. But again, I really didn't know much about nonprofits. I've been working for them on and off for years in different capacities, but to really create one, again, my learning curve was vertical.
Yes, yes. Well, oddly enough, I'm in exactly the same boat because, as you
Mm.
know, Dr. Jill Clark, Rhonda Bell, and I are starting we call it NAVR, the North American Association of Veterinary Receptionists. And we just went
Yay.
through all the bylaws stuff, and we are registered as a nonprofit in the state of Texas. And now we are doing our IRS paperwork. So you were exactly right. That learning
Mhm.
curve is straight up in the air. And
Mhm.
fortunately for me, and probably like you, we've sat on boards with
Mhm.
associations that we're members of. And so you learn a little bit about, the
Mhm.
machinations of an association and how those things work and the nonprofit and what you need to do. But still, it is a learning curve and it is
Mhm.
just kind of jumping off the diving board into the pool. But that's okay because you know what? You might just maybe not make a perfect landing, but you won't drown, and that's okay. And then you'll figure it out again. Yeah.
Well, and what a needed organization and support for such a beautiful part and aspect of veterinary medicine. And I know you and I have discussed this many, many times before in the past. And I'm so proud of you guys for doing that. So
Thank you.
Hip hip hooray.
Yeah, we appreciate your support, and luckily everybody's been very excited about it. And I think
Yeah.
that's really helped us keep moving. And we're all busy people. We all are. Our doodle polls are challenging, trying just to get us all in one spot so we can have conversations. But we've managed to move this forward fairly quickly after we all got our heads to the grindstone, because Jill and I
Mm-hmm.
had been spitballed it for 2.5 years prior to saying, okay, now it's time.
Mm-hmm.
Let's really do this. And so
Good.
it's coming to fruition. And like you, we were working on website, we're working on all the things. But tell us a little
Yeah.
bit about, um, how this will all work, how you will use this platform to support veterinary teams.
Yeah. And as the title suggests, it's veterinary teams living well. And that means all of the teams, all of the team members, all of the folks in veterinary hospitals, in organizations that support the veterinary community, veterinary industry. So we have all of those folks currently on our closed Facebook page. And if you are watching this and are interested, just simply go into Facebook and type in veterinary teams living well and send us a request to engage and participate, and we'll be eager to bring you on. The focus is just that. And what we've done in the past, and what I hope to do more in the future, is simply exemplifying those healthy habits on a daily basis. The quote that created all of this, and I read this quote, or maybe oh no, I heard it in The Secret. There was a video some years ago and it was very predominant, and in The Secret there was a gentleman talking about Mother Teresa and how Mother Teresa quoted, and I have it here on my piece of paper. She said, I was once asked why I don't participate in anti-war demonstrations. That's a pretty profound just statement there. I said that I will never do that. But as soon as you have a pro peace rally, I'll be there. And there was this idea of creating something that was in the space of maintaining and creating a healthy life and career within veterinary medicine. And that's when one night, as we get all these amazing wow moments while we're sleeping or in the shower, right? And I said, we need to be veterinary teams living well, because it's about living well. It's not about more information on compassion fatigue and what does it look like, and more information on burnout and what does that look like. I mean, we've talked that one and beat that one, and that's not what I wanted. I
Right.
wanted this to be about the living well, the pro peace, the solutions, the resources in that. It's good to know, and we've been identifying for what, a decade and a half, compassion fatigue and burnout and all of these other things. Matter of fact, when I was creating VSPN Practice Management 101 courses in maybe 2004, is when we were starting to see all the information come over from Europe about the suicide. So and that's another place I don't want to place all of my energy, right? I mean, we give out a lot of resources in QPR training, which I know you're familiar with and promote as well, right? Question, persuade, refer. Again, it's the resources. I want to give resources in the 9 or 10 or 8 pillars in health and well-being, to include occupational wellness, physical wellness, mental health wellness and awareness. I mean, all of that. So it's a very holistic approach to how does an individual and a team make this a priority. I can remember when I would start to see websites where on the careers page, they would actually say, our team focuses on health and well-being. And I was like, hallelujah, it's
Yeah.
finally here.
But then you wonder if it's true. Because one of the things, as you and I both have done in the past as consultants, is go into hospitals, and there is a lot of chatter about health and
Mhm,
well-being, and maybe they have an EAP, an employee assistance plan, but yet
mhm,
ergonomically, everything that these people are working with, sitting on, or lifting up
mhm,
are bad for them physically and breaking down their bodies.
mhm,
So that's not
mhm.
holistic, because holistic is in
Right.
all of those things. In fact, I said to some folks at AHA a couple of years ago, you're doing all these wellness guidelines. You need to have a guideline for ergonomics in a practice because think
Mm-hmm.
about how many people are damaged by just the foolishness of the way cages are constructed. Why are we standing
Mm-hmm.
on our heads treating animals on the ground? Yeah, when we
Mm-hmm.
could simply add a foot of height underneath the
Mm-hmm.
lowest cage, because every dog I've ever owned could jump 3 feet straight in the air, right? And us not have to suffer like that. But why don't we do it? I don't know, because we've always done it that way.
Oh, yeah. Well, just even think about a veterinary technician or veterinarian or assistant monitoring anesthesia around a dental table. I tie, wow, that is the most uncomfortable
It is.
position, and we'll be in it for 2, 3, 4 hours in a day. And you get up and you wonder why all your body parts hurt.
Yeah.
Oh gosh.
Exactly, exactly. In fact, even there's something years ago, I thought, having come out from the restaurant business, I always thought that it would be smart instead of having to wear those horrible masks that everybody hates and you used to have to just battle your team to say, put on your safety protection when your tartar is flying, is to have it like a salad bar where you had a sneeze guard that would come down and you could just do
Mm-hmm.
the
And
work
work.
and not have to wear anything and it would protect you further than just your face. But those are all
Yeah.
things that like you and I think about stuff like that. I don't know if people really
Yeah.
spend the time to think about things like that, but why not? Why not?
Yeah.
Because
Yeah.
that protects our team. That is how we can make them
Mm-hmm.
healthy. That's how we give them the
Mm-hmm.
right size stool to sit at when they're working. That's why we build our desk a certain height. That's why we
Mm-hmm.
lift the microscope up off of the kitchen counter height so you're not killing your neck every day. All these
Mm-hmm.
things are little chips away at our well-being.
Mm-hmm. And it's the very so originally too, when I first started having conversations in well-being, people were like, "Well, God, can you measure it?" And because we know too, as coaches and consultants, if you can't measure it, you need to be able to show that we're moving the needle in a direction. And I was like, "Well, yeah, my gut tells me I can measure this." And so I did have a dear friend, and her and I actually did a lot within Catalyst, and she's now a coach for veterinary growth partners. But her and I were having these conversations, and she became kind of like our beta testing. And that's when I wrote the article on how to measure veterinary wellness. And it really can be measured. You need to talk about with your team, what does it look like now? How do we support each other? Simple, small steps in well-being. And afterwards, I'll give you that link to that article
Yeah.
because it makes it tangible.
Oh, yeah.
And once your team starts thinking about it and supporting each other in these pillars of well-being, everything else starts to flourish as well. It's like right now, the whole premise in veterinary teams living well is 14 days of self-compassion, which people are like, self-compassion, that's totally selfish. How can you say that? How can that, why is that even a conversation with veterinary teams? Well, my quote in my article was, well, I think because we do not practice self-compassion, it's probably why we have such high burnout and high turnover and high other things.
To say, yeah, it's okay. It's okay. That's
Mhm.
so funny that you said that. I was teaching a leadership class to a group at the VMG group, and I was asking them about their core values for their practice, and then we were doing a little workshopping, and they came out, and it was compassion, and so I said, okay, let's talk about compassion. Compassion to who? Compassion to our pets, compassion to our clients, compassion to our fellow team members, and they were all gung ho. But I said, what about compassion to yourself? And one veterinarian's husband was there with her and poked her in the ribs and said, see, I told you. I said, did you poke her? And he said, yeah, because she never gives herself a break to be
Yeah,
imperfect, to be,
yeah,
not on all the time, to not be. You got to give yourself a break. You got to give yourself grace.
yeah,
Gosh, we screw
yeah,
up and we're just people
yeah,
and all people screw up.
yeah,
We set
hmm,
ourselves a
yeah,
standard that is so high it is impossible to reach, and that
hmm,
is not good for our well-being at all.
hmm.
Yeah.
And I like to have those conversations. I like to talk about these kinds of things. Like, let's really dig into it. Let's really share some good, gritty, gut wrenching vulnerability and really determine what is the crutch in the core of this? I mean, we've got biases and we've got the sense of perfection and imperfections. And, you know, this is what makes us have that and maintain a healthy career. It's not learning more about dentistry. Sorry, guys. It's not learning more about how to read a chemistry panel. And it's not more about, yes, I'm not trying to undermine the technical skills that we have and how important they are. But I want to elevate the fact that we have to be a person with emotions and biases and good and bad days. And we have to support each other with coping skills and support equally as important as all those beautiful, wonderful technical skills.
Exactly, exactly. Well, your clients are going to judge you on your human
Mhm.
skills more so than they will judge you on
Mhm.
technical skills
Yeah.
because they don't
Oh,
know.
yeah.
They don't know if you're good or not. They just know if they like you.
Yeah.
And I can tell you
Mhm.
I've been in practices where I thought there was just some of the shoddiest medicine I've ever seen being practiced, but yet clients absolutely adored the doctor. And I'm like, whoa, you just don't know what you don't know. But the
Yeah.
people skills were great. And the idea is there's a balance between both of those. Let us be good at peopling, let us be good at our jobs, but let us not be so tending to perfectionism that we can never satisfy ourselves or anybody else or we hold people up to such a high standard they can never meet it. And I think that's a lot of it. I gave a talk last year at AVMA called Your Brain is a Liar and Why That Matters. And it's true, our brain does lie to us about all these things. It lies to us that we, don't have control of our lives, that we can't say no to people, that we have to be perfect all the time. But one of the things that I struggle with is the fact that I love what I do so much that I won't
Mhm.
stop. And fortunately for me, I have a husband who goes, "That's enough. You're done for the night. Turn that computer off and come up and we're gonna have a
Yeah.
conversation." But not everybody has that buffer or somebody who's gonna put the brakes on them like I do.
Mhm.
But I find that that's true. I feel like sometimes if you're a workhorse and your load is
Mhm.
not as heavy as it's supposed to be, you think, or overburdened even, you feel like you're not doing anything. Like it's not enough.
Mhm.
I that's the other
Yeah.
thing. I don't think we talk about it enough is this addiction that we have to overwork because
Mhm.
that's another part of well-being. We have to say
Mhm.
it'll wait till tomorrow. There's another day.
Yeah.
It's let me go do something
Yeah.
else, that's completely
Yeah.
different. Um, and that brings me some joy outside of
Mhm.
this heavy load that I enjoy carrying,
Oh,
actually.
yes, I do too, obviously. I mean, I enjoy everything that my career has offered me in veterinary as a veterinary technician, and I still don't see that glass ceiling for myself 37 years. But I was at a class at the Veterinary Leadership Conference in Chicago, and Amy Newfield was there. And you and I have talked about and in the past have written articles even on the generations. Well, we now have 5 generations working within veterinary hospitals. That's a big deal. And she just did it so eloquently and talking about what does that look like? And that's another piece of this pie in supporting everybody where they are.
Mhm.
And the other piece of that too is that whole thing about and the lie about a balance, right? Here's my life, here's my career, here's my life, and here's the balance. Well, that's not how I see it at all. I see it as blending. I blend my days pretty well.
Yep.
And I do take my time off too.
Mhm. Yeah. Well, I was listening when I was flying to VMX, I was listening to Simon Sinek's book, Leaders Eat Last, and highly recommend it to anybody and everybody. Pretty much anything Simon Sinek writes is gold and treasure.
He
But
Twitter pates me, I'll be perfectly
oh,
honest.
what?
It's
Yes, it's amazing. But he wrote just a little sentence here that caught my attention and stuck with me. And it said, first of all, there's no such thing as work-life balance. It is about the integration. It's a blending. It's sometimes depending on what life is throwing at you, it will be out of kilter. But what he said that mattered to me, that really struck me, was that it is not about time. It is
Mm,
not about time. It is about what makes you happy versus what stresses you out. So if you
mm,
spend 10 hours of a week in something that's absolutely hellacious to you, that is not balanced. But
yeah,
if you spend 50 hours a week in something that brings you great joy, then that's fine because the
yeah,
things that are off balance for you or these hormones that are being, put into your brain by whatever experience you're having at the moment. And
mhm,
so you can't say, "Oh, I'm going to spend 20 hours doing this and 5 hours a week at the gym." And
mm-mm,
no, it's not a math
mm-mm,
problem. It is not. It is
mm-mm,
just kind of this flow that people go
mm,
through in their lives and in their days and in their weeks. And there's times
yeah,
when maybe our own personal health is going to be affected. We're going to spend a lot of time working with our own health, and maybe our work is diminished. But then there's other
mhm,
times when we're in great shape and we're feeling strong and the all the cylinders are firing, and we're going to be creating new things like veterinary team living well and pulling that out into the world and saying, look here, this is how we're going to do this. So I feel like we need to get that's a message we really need to get out. And I think that's the message that you're talking about, Rebecca, because it is eating the right thing. It is getting enough sleep. I mean, if you're sleep deprived, you can't be well. You
yeah.
mentally
I
you can't.
talk about
Yeah,
the primary pieces, and I can't remember exactly where I got this from, but it's take your meds. And meds is M period, E period, D period, S period. But originally, too, if you're on medication, take your meds,
yeah,
whether that's for antidepressants or blood pressure or diabetes, whatever the medications are, take them. But the primary things that everybody needs just for basic health and well being is meditation, quieting your body, bringing down those cortisol levels, understanding that we as veterinary professionals live in a very fight or flight constant. We burn cortisol like nobody's business. So the meditation piece is no, I'm not talking, oh,
right.
I'm talking, oh, giving myself just a few moments to breathe,
It's a little box breather. Go
reconnect.
hide in the bathroom and
Mhm.
breathe. Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, that's what we need. So then it's meditation, exercise, intentional exercise. People will say, "Oh, I work in a veterinary hospital. I'm working all day and I'm moving all day." Yeah, but it's not the same, right? Some muscle mass and some movement, some tai chi, something, right? Exercise, diet, eat properly for who you are and for the type of person you are and the energy that you expend, to include a lot of water. We're talking, we need a lot of water. I mean, that's one of the first things we can all do better in our lives is drink more water.
Mhm.
All right, so meditation, exercise, diet, and sleep. Appropriate amounts of sleep. I know when I was younger, I needed X amount of sleep. And right now, in my life right now, 6, 7 hours of sleep is about all I need. I wake up about 1 o'clock in the morning. I'm like, okay, here we go, brain. And I process my day. And in about 30 minutes, I am fast back to sleep.
There you go. Yeah, I do the same
You
thing.
know?
Got 7 hours of sleep and
Mhm,
try to keep a sleep cycle. That's the other thing too. If you have pets, they do that for you because Tucker wakes me up every morning at the same time, barking and shuffling
mhm,
around in his crate, wanting to go out. And so it helps you keep on a cycle, and pets will do that for you. Routine is
mhm,
very helpful in being well.
mhm,
And when we get things that disrupt our routine, first it stresses us out because our brain is designed to create habit,
mhm,
and that is it reduces our expenditure of energy when we don't have to think about everything we do.
mhm,
And so that's a good thing that we can do is just create a good routine at home. But we don't get stuck in that routine if you need to do something else, or you don't want to be stuck at
mhm.
home all the time. So no, this is on Tuesday night we eat pizza. On Wednesday night we eat this. And
Yeah.
don't go there. That just gets boring.
A little spice of life.
But you can say, "I eat at this time, and I go to bed at this time." Even if you're not sleepy, go to bed, right? Just go to bed
Yep.
because and do something there that relaxes you. Read a book,
Mhm,
not an
mhm.
electronic device. Read a book.
Those stackable habits,
Yeah,
right? And that's a lot of the stuff that we do within Veterinary Teams Living Well. Like prior to February, it's like we really could have a whole 2 weeks on just self-compassion. So that's what we're doing.
Mhm.
We have on a daily basis around 6 o'clock in the morning, there's something that drops for our folks in Living Well on self-compassion. I put out a 5 minute meditation video. Why is that important? I've dropped a few articles. I use that quote about how I think because we do not, as veterinary professionals, consider the compassion for ourselves. How I think that's the driving force behind burnout and compassion fatigue. And I've already gotten pushback on that, right? But we focus on different things. One time I had 21 days of intentional movement. One time during summer we had you know, summer outings on a shoestring, right? Why is it so important to get out of the hospital, get out of your home, and it's summer? Do some things, and people will say, I can't afford it. I'm like,
You don't have to
that's
do
a bunch of
anything, go outside. I mean, I think that's one thing that people miss a lot. That Tucker has to join every now and then.
Hi,
He's
Tucker.
co-hosting here, but you think you have to do something, but you can just go outside and sit. There's something about
Yeah.
being in nature and the calmness of green that soothes
Hmm.
the human brain. And eh, our team, when we were managing, I was managing a hospital, we put a picnic table outside under a grove of
Hmm.
trees. And you could go out there and
Yeah.
take your break and eat your lunch and just be outside. And then we were fortunate that there was a walking trail that was formed
Mm.
behind our building from an old railroad track. In fact, our practice owner and myself and a bunch of other business people in town actually petitioned the city to make it one of the longest hiking and walking trails in the state of North Carolina, because you could walk almost, by the time it was all over, you could walk almost across the state using it because it was a
Wow.
train track. It used to be a train track.
Right.
So we had this great walking trail, and several of us would go on our lunch breaks and we go down the trail and we take
Yeah.
a walk. But it was
Hmm.
encouraging people to get out of the building and
Hmm.
not go
Hmm.
across to the fast food joint and eat stuff. And then we
Mhm,
would have,
mhm.
community meals where everybody would bring in potluck stuff. And I actually admonished my sales reps to not bring junk food to my hospital. Now, this is back in the 2000s, folks. So I was saying, no donuts, no pizza. You bring us something healthy or you don't come in here. And they don't like it because it's more trouble, but it was,
Costs
looking
more.
after your team, and it does cost more. That's right. I would rather them not bring anything and talk to me and then us to go to lunch than to eat garbage. But all that came along not when I first started as a manager, but I learned the lesson of taking care of my team that way and my own self, and wanting better for everybody there. So yeah, managers can really have
Yeah.
a lot of influence on that and
Mhm,
keeping
mhm,
the team well. I was to sidetrack a little bit, but I was doing a talk for vet partners recently on manager compensation, and I did a little Facebook research, how we do, into our groups. And I said, who's got an unusual compensation model, something that you're maybe bonused on that's not common, or the way you set up your salary is not common? Well, a lot of them were, we still get paid on hourly, or we still get paid as an exempt employee salary. But one got bonused on culture and employee retention. And I
cool.
loved it, because that's the goal of a good manager, is to take
Mhm,
care of the people so the people take care of your business. And to
yeah,
be rewarded for that, I think, is extremely valuable.
mhm, mhm. Well, coming back to that whole piece about measuring, you bet.
Yeah.
When you have a team that supports each other and they know that their purpose is healthiness together, it trickles down. I've got articles on that too. Prior to closing Catalyst, I had articles. I started really bringing about what does that look like? Healthy team, healthy practice, healthy pets, healthy conversations. I mean, it's all linked. It's very much all linked. But kind of going back around to some of the things that we'd like to do with Living Well moving forward is getting that nonprofit status, creating that board, putting them together, all of my budgets and all the things we have to have in the background to create that. Uh, but we would like to we did during the 2020 and 2021, we delivered 3 virtual Veterinary Teams Living Well stream symposiums. You may recall that. They we're moving that, I'm hopeful, into a fall retreat. I can't give you all the details because I have an organization that's helping me with this. And next week we start to finalize where we want it, what does it look like, who are going to be our speakers. But we're going to have, fingers crossed, a Living Well retreat in October.
That would be awesome and very exciting. Very exciting. Yes, I do
Yeah.
remember. Of course, I know you do because what years ago when we first met, we were talking about this a retreat, and it was this
Mhm.
illuminating women's retreat. Realizing at that point in time, 80% of our employees were female, and we really wanted to have this wonderful retreat where we talked about all these things. And I can't remember
Mhm.
what happened. I think life just happened, and we never really got it going. But um, I think this is an idea whose time has come that people will
Mhm.
get a lot of value out of coming to a retreat and learning these lessons and kind of understanding a lot of our own self-destruction in
Mhm.
our core well-being.
Mhm.
What we do when we have
Mhm.
bad habits, and I know I personally have bad habits. I just went to for my annual physical, and my A1C was 6.1, and the doctor's like, okay, low carb diet. And I go, okay. And so in the
Yep.
last week, I've lost almost 6 pounds just from changing bad habits that
Yeah. Yeah.
crept into my life. It was grabbing junk food, crackers, or not necessarily bad. I mean, they were all like wheat thins, things like that, but still it was there. It was a bad habit rather than carrots and
Mhm.
celery. So I'm trying to change those bad habits too. But
Yeah.
I love this
Yeah.
retreat. Yeah.
Yeah.
So Rebecca, tell us, you mentioned that people could just get on the Facebook group and get
Mhm.
involved in this. How many people do you have involved in the Facebook group now?
Think we're a little over 1,600, 1,700. I think that's where we're at right now. And there really hasn't been any push or campaign. I'm waiting until I get my website fixed up and we have this announcement for the retreat and all of that to really start saying this is available and feeling good about that push. Um, And the website is, I'm not even gonna give you my website right now because there's a donation button on it and that's not ready to launch or anything. So I'm just gonna hold back that reins a little bit and tease that we're hopeful to have a retreat in October. But anybody can jump on. So we have right now I created our Living Well Lunchables. So once a month I'm doing a afternoon event and I'm having lining up my guest speakers and I'll bring in you as a guest speaker too. And we have these 21 days usually to changing a habit or introducing something. We tend to have information on changing those cultures, shifting that. What does it look like to be living well and really supporting managers and individuals in creating this for themselves and for their teams.
Yeah, I feel like the managers would benefit greatly from this. And,
Mhm.
you know, in the fallout, the whole hospital will benefit from it, but the leaders have to embrace this. And then once that
Mhm.
happens, you find out you do have retention. You don't have constant
Mhm.
bickering. It's not us versus them happening because it's
Mhm.
all we are now working together. And the entire hospital benefits and our patients benefit too. I
Mhm.
was interviewed yesterday on a podcast about my book, and it was talking about using hospitality skills. And of course, I talk about
Mhm.
hospitality skills, using them within the team, internal communication and
Mhm.
external communication to the customer, because we are truly our best customers are inside our building and work for us, and we need to
Mhm.
hear that.
Mhm.
But what data points are there? So there's data information from the Harvard Business Review that says when we embrace these kind of things and we have a collaborative team that is joyous in their work and putting positive energy out into the world, doctors don't get sued. That's huge. The malpractice drops dramatically. Talk about measuring. You can measure that significantly with
Mhm.
malpractice drops. The retention of staff maintains. medical
Mhm.
mistakes, oddly enough, are more prominently talked about, but made less often. But they are prominently talked about because it's okay to have a
Mhm.
failure and then kind of parse
Yeah.
through why it happened and fix it with the team rather than trying
Mhm.
to hide it because you're afraid you're going to get into trouble to make a mistake. So the patients actually have better outcomes when people are more forthcoming with their errors because they feel
Yeah.
safe in doing so. So there's so much
Mhm.
positive data that follows the fact that treating each other well, treating yourself
Mhm.
well, and treating your customers well makes for a very healthy business.
It sure does. Yeah. The spin I typically take on this, similar to your hospitality, which I agree wholeheartedly, 100%, but just treating each other like professionals, right? You can typically ask a team member, well, what does a professional do? Well, they tell you the things they don't do, right? Well, they don't do these things. So similar to hospitality, it's when we start focusing on the positive aspects of being hospitable and the positive aspects of being a professional. And we've helped them see what that looks like. They may not have been exemplified that before in previous in places of employment, or maybe their family didn't exemplify those things very well for them. Coming back to that piece about the 5 generations, what does even hospitality and being hospitable look between the generations? What does professionalism look like between those 5 generations? It's very different.
Mhm.
So how are we as a team collaborative with all these people? That's why our my symbol and my logo always has my rainbow people,
Yeah.
because it takes all of us
Right.
with all of those passions, experiences, backgrounds, drivers, dysfunctions.
Yeah.
Hallelujah, right? It takes all of that to make a team. And finding that common purpose together as a team and moving forward. You and I talk about this all day.
Oh,
That's what makes it so magical.
it is. It absolutely is magical. I'm when you said that, having all diverse people in there, I thought about something that I took Dr. Charisse Ross' class when I was at VMX, and she was talking about some of the things that we inadvertently do that are kind of biased. And one of the things she mentioned was dress code. And I went, oh,
Mm-hmm.
it never occurred to me
Mm-hmm.
that if we say, okay, you need to dress like a bank teller, well, that's a very white choice. But I think
Mm-hmm.
that's another reason that we should have uniforms and that we should provide uniforms that everybody dresses the same, no matter, what their culture is. But it also has to do with hairstyles and, body art and all the things that,
Mm-hmm.
that different cultures do differently. And have everybody conforming to the same thing, whether it is, but it's all a standard for everybody. Everybody has a standard based
Mm-hmm.
in a kind of a neutral place, which scrubs are
Mm-hmm.
pretty neutral, right? Pretty neutral.
Mm-hmm.
But that really, I had never thought of it before. I thought of a lot of other things that she
Mm-hmm.
talked about, but I'd never thought about that before. That was very an interesting point. But yeah,
Yeah.
we need to, and the other thing is making those people feel safe enough in that environment to share their thoughts with us about
Mm-hmm.
how things would look. I can remember managing my last hospital, and we had a lot of Hispanic farm workers that came into the community. And fortunately, we had two employees who spoke fluent Spanish, and we were able to pull them in and have an interpreter, which I thought was extremely handy. And then in my first practice, we had someone who spoke sign language, and that was also
Mm-hmm.
because we had a school for the deaf. So I think we also need to, part of my hospitality training is anticipate need, and we need to
Mm-hmm.
anticipate the needs of our team and our clients and have
Mm-hmm.
a system in place that says, hey, we got you covered here. We got your back. Whatever it is that they need, we have a way to manage that for people rather than going, no,
Mm-hmm.
sorry, just, too bad for you. That's not
Yeah.
the,
Or just the whole idea of bringing on well-being in our practice, right? That's overwhelming. Well,
Mhm.
let's chunk it out. Let's just make these little stackable changes that we decide together. Let's chunk it out. Let's not make it so overwhelming. And let's move forward over the next year and a half and see what happens, right?
I mean, we always have these lunch and learns where, of course, we're veterinary. God bless us. We're so cheap. We want other people to pay the way. But what about having a dietitian or a nutritionist come and talk to our team? I mean,
Yeah.
has anybody ever done that? I don't know. Maybe they have, but that would be a smart move
Mhm.
because
Yeah.
when you're having sugar crashes, mentally you struggle.
Yeah.
So let's figure out a good snacks to keep in our cabinet. Let's keep
Mhm. Mhm.
appropriate drinks that are healthy in our stock room for
Yeah.
our team, and let's coach our sales reps to not bring us donuts first thing in the morning, so we're all in a
Yeah.
sugar crash by lunch. So let's think about how to take care of our bodies and our minds. It's not just our minds; it's our bodies
Yeah.
too. And the body
Yeah.
leads to the mind. If you're in pain all the time,
Mhm.
I've determined that this is why old people are grumpy. The older I get, the more I understand why, because you hurt somewhere all the time.
Somewhere.
So,
Yeah. True. I felt that this morning, getting out of bed. But let's leave on a positive note because the Merck study. So thankfully, Merck has been doing repeatable studies for 4 different surveys, going back probably 8 or 9 years. I don't remember the intervals of that, right? 2 surveys ago, they brought on the veterinary team. So they've had been studying veterinarians for 4 years, and now they've got studies that go back 2 years to include the veterinary team. And I absolutely loved it when Dr. Tillery, Taylor Tillery, what a fun name, huh? Dr. Tillery at VLC announced we are not broken. I was the only one. I stood up, I didn't stand up in the back, but you can imagine I was like,
yeah, that's it.
and then I realized, oh, nobody else is really as excited about that as I.
Well, I tell you the truth. I don't think we were ever broken. I think what
No.
we had some skewed numbers because the entire world was in distress. And
Mhm.
we surveyed in the middle of a pandemic. And I think if you had surveyed any human on earth during that
Yeah.
time, many of those results would have been the same. Because as human
Mhm.
beings, when you lock us away from other humans, it
Mhm.
harms us. We are
Mhm.
collaborative beings. We are meant to be together. We are not meant to hide in our house. And
Mhm.
just the joy of having a little conversation standing online with somebody in the grocery store makes us happy as people. And we couldn't do that. So I really do believe that, you and I, we've looked at a lot of data over our lives. And if you can't put it into context, then the
Mhm.
data can lie. So I really do
Mhm.
believe that were we tired? Hell yeah, we were tired, and that
Mhm.
is the truth.
Mhm.
But we were not broken, any more so than any other population. And think if
Industry,
it's
yes.
the same thing, right? Right.
Hallelujah.
So
Yep.
I'm glad that we're
I've been
and I'm glad to see I saw it like you, like about 80% of us are really like what we do or are happy in what we
yeah.
do. And yeah, are there 10% or 12% that are struggling? Yeah, and we need to do something about that. But the other thing is maybe those 10 or 12% are in the wrong place. Maybe they're not. And we need to be more transparent about what this work really is and how,
Mhm.
what
Mhm.
skill sets you need and what mental elasticity I think that
Mhm.
you need to be able to do this work and bounce back
Mhm.
after 5 euthanasias in a day.
Mhm.
And realistically, we need to be saying to people, understand this is the game. Do you want to play it? And if you don't,
Yeah.
then don't get on the field because it's going to
Yeah.
break you. It's going to break you.
Yeah.
But I think
Yeah.
that that's a conversation that we don't have very much with
Mhm.
our employees, with potential new veterinarians, with potential new technicians, because we get into it because we love animals and we love science. And those are
Mhm.
good options, but we also have to love people and love ourselves and have a toolkit that lets us get through our day. And I think you're going to provide
Yeah.
that us.
And that's exactly right. That's what we want to do is create those tangible toolkits for everybody on the team, not being siloed into all of these different things. We want to look at you holistically as a person, holistically as a team in the delivery of quality veterinarian medicine. And how does that whole team taking their meds, how does that impact that wonderful experience for the patient and for the client?
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Rebecca, I think that's a great note to end on. So
Thank you.
run over one more time. They can get in touch with you.
Veterinary Teams Living Well, the Facebook page, but also for me, I'm just going to give my really simple email, Rebecca Rose RVT at gmail.com. It doesn't get any easier than that, right? I've had a similar email for 24 years. And I would just tickle me pink for all of you that are viewing this to come over and be with us in Living Well.
Absolutely. Well, I'm already there. So, and I look forward to seeing all the cool things that you're coming out for our veterinary teams. So we do flourish. We go beyond thriving. We go just flourish and joyful. How about that? Big ask. We can do it. Okay. Thank you again, Rebecca, and thank you to everyone today for listening to this episode of The Bend. We will put Rebecca's information and the Vet Teams Living Well information in the show notes to make it easy for you to find and enjoy and join. Thank you so much again.